Okay, welcome to the City of Daytona Beach Economic Development Advisory Board meeting for Wednesday, December 18th. Calling to order. Will you call the roll, please?
Thomas Blond.
He's got an excused absence, right?
That's correct. Tim Davis.
Here.
Bill Ellinger. Present. Carol Killian.
Here.
Aaron McDermott.
Here.
Bruce Baker.
Here.
And,
We have a quorum.
yeah. And Derek Tripp was,
Derek,
yeah, did he call in?
He did not yet.
Okay. All right. You all look at the minutes for the last meeting. Could entertain a motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Go to reports. Volusia Economic Development Division. Rob Earhart.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Advisory Board. Merry Christmas. Just 3 items briefly. Last Thursday, the Volusia County Council approved local financial support for True Science Holdings. It's a Daytona Beach-based company in Fentress, in the process of moving into the former Crane Cams building. If you've been by there recently, you've seen that the landlord has made some pretty significant improvements to that parcel, both on the exterior as well as on the interior for the company. So that's a positive story. Just at FYI, labor statistics are due out this Friday morning at 10 a.m. I am not forecasting what the result will be in terms of unemployment, although 6.5%, we're continue to move in the right direction. And then finally, you may have seen the recent News Journal article on a survey that Manpower conducts on a quarterly basis. Volusia County was recognized as one of the leading locations in the country, above places like Austin, Texas, in terms of the optimism that local employers have with regard to how they feel about hiring in the first quarter of 2014. In general, they indicated that they thought they'd increase their staff levels. The response was 27% to the positive. By comparison to the fourth quarter of this year, that was 21%, and the first quarter a year ago was 15%. So overall, when you subtract out those that don't feel as optimistic, the numbers are 24, 13, and 8% respectively for those 3 quarters. So again, reason to feel like nationally the economy continues to improve, and locally we're enjoying our share of that. So thank you. That's my report.
Yeah, what was it, about 4 or 5 years ago, didn't Workforce and the county do a calling effort on the existing companies? And one of the questions were, were you going to be hiring next year, and what's your prospects? I remember going on some calls with a couple of folks on some of the businesses around ISB.
Actually, I would defer that question to your esteemed member to the left, and he probably oversaw that.
Wasn't that done about 5 years ago? Okay. Is there any money in the budget for the county to do that again?
There's no money in my budget to do that, and might be something you can explore with Robin Kings. Obviously, that's the new president of what's still called the CBE beginning February. Well, I won't steal her thunder. I'll let her tell you what they're going to be called in the first of the year. They're going through a branding initiative, and they'll have a big splash after the first of the year, as will all the workforce boards in the state.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? I saw that article and we were talking about it, but Volusia County is still considered a low income. I mean, as far as the amount of money that we make here, what is that average income now?
So, Carol, I'd like to use the state's list of annual average wages that they publish once a year for incentive purposes. And so, yes, Volusia County's annual average wage still relatively modest in the 32,000 plus range. If you were to look at all 67 counties, you'd see that we're just below the 50% in terms of ranking wages. So while that may not seem to be encouraging news, I think it's a great part of our value proposition here. And I'll let Keith speak to that as well from a recruiting perspective. Certainly companies that are in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic and even companies in other locations, Midwest and even Georgia, if they want to be more profitable, wages is one of their key factors every month, every week, every year. And if they can come here and do the same and spend less, then...
It just concerns me that we talk about this year after year and it just does not move. It just seems to be moving up incrementally, if at all.
Well, it is moving incrementally, and we had showed a slide about a year ago that demonstrated that the annual average wage in Volusia County over a 10-year period was up almost 30%. So if you look at it year to year, you can be less than encouraged, but when you look at it over a sustained period of time, it was year over year an increase.
Okay. I'm just...
Think about how, in order to move that average, $1,000, in order to move that average $1,000 a job, considering the total workforce, what an incredible investment that would have to be. I mean, it's just not there.
Just not there.
And we just came through a recession.
Right. Well, no, and I understand the recession part. I just think, I've been here for too long, I guess, and I haven't seen that rise like we would all like to see. And anyway.
Well, that's those two gentlemen's jobs right
Yes.
there. The three of them, that's their jobs.
I better get on a plane.
All right, speaking of which, Keith Norton.
Great. Thank you for having me today. Happy holidays. Just going along with that theme of the income, the good thing about the Florida state incentives is it requires, in order for a target industry to be incentivized, it has to be 115% or more over the average income. So that forces us and for the county and the cities to work on jobs that are over the average wage. And I mean, we can work on others if we're requested by the cities or the county to work on projects that are at the average wage, but for what we look at, the targets we look at, and the income levels we go after are all over the average wage. And sometimes dramatically more. Outreach, it continues to be strong. These last 2 months since I presented, there were 5 other activities. First of all, the Southeast U.S.-Japan Association meeting in Biloxi, Mississippi. The Florida delegation was headed by Governor Scott. There were 7 other southeastern states in attendance, and this is a 36-year-old organization where the southeast states will cultivate relationships with the corporate decision makers, the chief officers of the top Japanese businesses. This organization will go to Japan every other year, and then one of the 7 states will host them. So it was Biloxi's, Mississippi's, turn to host. Jeb Bush hosted them in Orlando several years ago. And we had a very large delegation, 36 people from Florida, networking with these people like the chairman of Toshiba, the chairman of Sumitomo. So these are great, great companies to at least meet the chief executives of. To note, Japan is the largest international investor in Florida, really going further than the UK or Germany or any of the other investors, Canada. And they employ 20,000 Floridians. So there is a push by Florida to cultivate Japanese business. Governor Scott had been there 2 weeks before the meeting to open a Tokyo office. We did FabTech in Chicago. We did ITSEC in Orlando. That's going after the modeling and simulation industry. And, of course, Radon has been an historic exhibitor there. And then, of course, I did a quick 3-day mission to Germany to follow up on leads that I had acquired from an earlier trip this year. highlighting that trip was a tour of the Airbus factory in Hamburg, which is fascinating because the 5th assembly plant for the Airbus 380s is opening up in Mobile, Alabama. So many of the southeastern states were there to identify second and third tier suppliers for that plant. And so it's been a really active year. We've done, at the conclusion of the last trip, we've done 42 outreach activities, which puts us on the road about once a week or once every other week. And that's not only me, but the team that we have. So we're excited. The whole purpose of that is to identify projects to put in our pipeline so that we can invite them to visit Volusia County. They won't decide on Volusia County without visiting, so that's the first purpose, and then to make sure that they keep Volusia County top of mind and make that as a decision for location. Pipeline is strong. It changes daily, but the last yesterday we had 31 projects in the pipeline with possible potential jobs of 2,219. 2 projects, you've read about one, Project Dow, which is looking at is in the final stages of deciding on Deltona. And then there is an office finance operation for Daytona Beach, which we hope to announce very soon. Several of these projects shortlisted, or at least seriously looking at Volusia County, are looking at Daytona Beach.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Daytona Beach Regional Chamber, this is not Jimmy Cameron.
I'm the kinder, gentler Jim, so thank you very much, and happy holidays to everybody as well. We continue to work on a project called Project Blue Sky. I know Rob's been very engaged in that particular project. Emory has been very helpful in making sure that we're at the right stages for permitting and zoning. This particular project is a retention and expansion project, and it results in about 400 jobs with an average wage of $71,000. So, Carol, that'll touch a little bit on hoping to bring that wage up. I believe that there will be a proposal coming before this board next month. I think we'll be at that stage at that point to come forward. George Mirabal, the interim president for the chamber, continues to work on that project and will continue to work on that since he was very engaged in that from the beginning. I'm still getting up to speed on that particular one. But with partners like Rob and Ken Sharples and some others that have been working on that, we're pretty confident things seem to be moving along in the right direction. Emory has been fantastic to work with, so excited to bring you more information on that next month. We are also currently, mobilizing support for the Hard Rock this evening at City Council. We'll be here to speak on behalf of that particular project. And Space Volusia has a very important hearing coming up in February. So, those are a couple of projects we're also working on. And if you're interested, we have Congressman DeSantis coming to speak at the chamber Friday. So if you'd like access to the congressman, it's a great time out at LPGA to come and share with him your views and needs and what our expectations are of his job in Washington. So a lot going on. I'm not going to steal the thunder because I see it's already on the report later on, but we're also working on a great program with Larry coming up in January talking about specifically Daytona Beach and some of the trends and economic trends here. So keeping busy.
On the Daytona Vision Foundation, we did not have a meeting in December. We will pick up the ball in January. So there's nothing to report. Fentress Initiative, is there anything to report, Tim?
Not particularly. I haven't talked to you in about 3 weeks on that. You
Okay.
You had sent an email to try to coordinate with Bruce and.
Yeah, we did have a kind of a meeting at Panera's. We sat down, had coffee, and talked about a couple of the issues. I sent some pictures yesterday. I don't know if you got them in there. I'm sorry, but the quality was a little bit dusty.
I changed the first two, the
Oh,
first
yeah?
one, rather.
Yeah. Oh, you did a lot better. That's the sign. If you look at it, the back of the sign welcomes you to Daytona Beach Business Park or Daytona Business Park. And the second sign, this sign is probably at least 40 years old. If you notice, some of the Florida Production Engineering have been there in a long time. Champion Math, General Electric, R.L. Dick and Associates,
Foley is gone.
Foley's gone, all these different, and it's not a bad sign in the fact that it's kind of it's a directional sign. It's the one to tell you, it's wet, but it's absolutely incorrect. So that would be, and actually have a couple sign guys looking at what would it take not to replace it, because, it needs to be painted at least, or I don't know, if you're going to retain it. Tearing it down would be one way to go, but getting a sign permit, all these different things, the signs of that size would be probably close to $40,000. Even not lit, $35,000, $40,000 by the time you can finish it. The other thing it was kind of strange because I was looking at it, and these pictures are kind of reflective. I was taking pictures from the sign back towards the speedway. You see the speedway in the background. That is a really weird traffic arrangement, and I don't know, I might get Sans Lassiter to look at it, freebie, and just get him to take a look at it, see what because, you got the 7-Eleven on one side, you get this little speed park right behind it, you got the Carrabba's center there, that little center, with the checkers and all that, you get that little street that goes back down where Daytona Coke is, you got all this traffic in this one spot. And I'm sure that, when this was first done, Ed Schwartz reminded me it was his dad who actually, that's where STEM Road started, when his dad put Florida Production Engineering in Fentress Park, and they brought it from Michigan. And he said when they moved in, the road was not yet done, and they were going down a dirt and gravel path, with the trucks. And the building had already been built. And they were moving all their machinery in, and the roads kind of came in later. So, and that was back in the early '60s. So, a lot of times, things happen, and there's growth all around there. Of course, the Speedway, there's been a lot of growth in that area. So, we'll keep following up. I made a list of all the business owners in the Fentress area. I just had one of the staff do it, and they're going to look at that. Most of it is rental.
Yeah.
It's the large guys like Root and Cotton and those kind of guys that own most of that strip. But you really look at it, it's a nice looking area. It's just got a few little areas that probably need to be cleaned up, but it's really it's a not only historic industrial park for this area, it is still a very viable one, I think.
One thing about the entrance and the signage there is, certainly both corners of Fentress are, current redevelopment candidates right now. Mm-hmm. With one Daytona going over there, the Taco Bell, the Speed Park, the Casual Mail, and the 7-Eleven on the corner. Those were all developed 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're all on 20-year first-term leases that are expiring. The Taco Bell's tired. The Casual Mail's not staying. They're actually repositioning them into a larger type store.
Those are things I don't know about.
Right. 7-Eleven wants to keep the corner, but they need a little more corner. They like to build their normal store there. So that north corner is going to look a lot different, probably within the next 24 months. So could this be a good opportune time to look at that?
Yeah,
when you brought up Lassiter is what prompted me to, there's going to be some redesign of that entrance and probably the signal and turn lanes.
Well, if I buy Lassiter lunch, he'll talk.
That's great.
So maybe, since we were on an appointed board, I can't have lunch with you.
Sure.
But I can have lunch with him and you, and we'll bring in Lassiter and we'll chat about it. Does anybody else? I'll buy you lunch too. Doesn't matter. I get an expense account.
We'll talk about that.
That sign would probably never pass code.
Oh, I know that sign wouldn't pass code.
Even if I meet with you, you can't meet with him.
Right.
I can't?
Right. No.
No. Okay.
Not without.
We can never speak.
Oh, shoot.
You can't
can
talk
meet
about
with me,
anything
though.
that has to do with
No?
anything that we're gonna see.
I can meet with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Nancy, I hope you're familiar with our lovely
Yes.
sunshine.
I spent some time in Florida, so.
Yeah, but there's a few proposed site plans floating around about vacating Bayless behind Hooters and pulling Ed's to Shores property in to go as deep as like that Best Buy Plaza
Yeah, that would be
and
nice.
big retail going back pretty far. So,
Well, I guess, so now is the time to look at maybe doing some of that entrance.
correct.
Okay. Good. Timing is everything. Okay, we'll go into, from Fentress Initiative, we'll go on to eggs and issues. Did this get in there?
Yeah.
Okay. This is just a very brief synopsis. We're working on the timing. I talked to Jim about it as late as this morning. We work out in the same gym, so it's easy to get him early in the morning. And so these are the proposed people that we would have. I've contacted 3 of them. So I got a phone call into President Jackson. And that could be President Jackson or President Johnson, one of the two. We would like to have someone from the colleges, because as the colleges have really come forward in the last few years to be a major impetus in the whole business development scenario. Like to have Derek Henry or Mr. Chisholm on the 2, and then the other one I didn't think about, but Robin King would probably be good from workforce. And we give everybody 6 to 8 minutes. Try to keep it in the 25 to 30 minute presentation area, and then 15 minutes for Q&A. And the first part of it would be the economic review from Lori Cantron. That would just be very brief, and be a lot briefer than what you do, Rob, because it's pretty micro. It's the city boundaries of Daytona Beach, and not the whole county. So try to make it a little shorter presentation. The idea is to bring in as much of what is happening, like the E-zone and the beach side. I don't know if you all have seen the beach side. I live there, and I go up and down my bike all the time. And do you know that across the street from Bel Air Plaza, the Hojo was bought? And I believe Barry and Bex, or one of his companies, bought it. They just demoed the old restaurant in front of it. I don't know if you knew that. And they have cubed out all of the rooms, and they're going to do a complete renovation. If you keep looking at that from that line south, it's creeping down all the new development. The New Hampton, the Desert Inn's going to be redone. This is good. I mean, the E-zone's got to be an area that we're looking at 2017 for the Shriners Convention, that the city is starting to work toward that project. So I think there's a lot to be said in that area. Do you all have anybody else that you think we should ask that I've overlooked?
Well, I know we've had the workforce there before, the last two times.
Is that
I
worked out?
don't know, how much he really contributes, frankly.
Okay.
Well, I see the News Journal report needing to be a longer piece, because the reason we moved it to January was because so she could give us the report on all of 13 and what's going forward.
Okay.
So I would like to see more her report
Okay.
longer.
All right. Well,
I mean, we can still invite workforce, but I don't know.
We added them this time because of the rebranding, an opportunity to talk about the whole
Okay,
rebranding.
that's probably a good
Okay.
idea. Yeah.
what I didn't want is to make it, we can make this as long as 40 minutes. Okay? You start the Q&A, or start the program a little bit before 8. You do all the, because everybody's going to get there between 7:30 and quarter to 8. Then 15 minutes for buzz time, as I call it. Then if you start right at 8, 40 minutes makes it 8:40. then Q&A, 15 minutes, you're still before 9 o'clock.
Well, I just remember the last 2 years we've done this, everybody said, God, I wish we had a little more time with the News Journal report. Because,
Okay.
you know, you get more questions.
Well, why don't I do this? I'll separate her out
Okay,
to be a little longer and give her double. And then we'll give 8 minutes to everybody else.
okay. Okay, and you
It's
can-
not a contest.
Yeah, no, and you can smooth that a little bit, but I just
Sure.
know that there will be a lot of Q&A with her too,
Okay.
so,
Okay, so the idea is to get everybody out by 9 a.m.
right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Get everybody out by 9. Okay? All right, well, we'll move forward. There's no further objection on that. Okay, let's go on to True Science ad valorem tax exemption, Emory County.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and Board. I do have in the audience today Todd Stefaniak, who will come forward for questions a little later. Currently, this company is at 771 Fentress Boulevard. They'll be moving into 530 Fentress Boulevard. That's the old Crane Cams building. Let's see. They're going to create 50 new jobs. The cumulative payroll over, this is page 4, number 5. Cumulative payroll over the period of exemption is about $6 million and change. Percentage hiring goal for Daytona Beach residents, number 6, is 30%. They're going to spend about $750,000 to rehab this facility. There's contamination at the site, which they are cleaning up. And one of the things that has to happen with this particular application is they have to sign a brownfield site rehabilitation agreement with the state in order to be eligible. So we're working that through right now. Because of the timing of what the company plans to do and the BSRA, we have to bring it before you at this meeting, and then we'll report back to you whether that was signed and whether they're going to be eligible for the incentives. Pretty much that's it, my overview, and I'll ask Todd to come forward. For any questions.
If you would state your name and address, please, for the record.
Good morning, Todd Stefanik, 1116 Pelican Bay.
We give you a couple minutes just to kind of tell you your story as far as with the company and if you've got what you all do, what product you rep, and manufacture.
Well, we're generally an animal health and wellness company. We have a couple of different divisions. Prescription pharmaceuticals for animals into big box retailers is how we got started, and we began manufacturing our own animal health and wellness products. We plan on using the 530 Fentress site for final packaging and assembly of a flea and tick product that we manufacture called VetGuard Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentally, that's the project.
How many units of that do you sell a year? Does that make that big of a plant? Must be a lot of it.
It is. I think that last year we sold about 2 million units.
Is this the stuff that you drop on and you rub it in?
That's exactly right.
Okay,
yes.
that's stuff, yeah.
It's a topical flea and tick.
Okay. Any questions?
How long have y'all been in business?
I think this is our 3rd year.
No?
Yeah.
And you're leasing a facility.
We are. Currently, the VetGuard Plus final assembly we do in a facility in Indianapolis, Indiana. We also have about 250,000 square feet in Springville, Utah, and utilize a 3PL in Grand Prairie, Texas, to do our final distribution.
Your current workforce is only 17.5% Daytona Beach residents. Will you be trying to up that with your jobs created?
We will. Emory's given us some ideas to solicit more of the immediate Daytona Beach area. I think he's got some job fairs or working specifically with the city to solicit local residents. Right now, pretty much our recruiting consists of Craigslist ads, so that's where our workforce comes from.
Yeah. Because I see you're planning to create the first year 30 more jobs.
That's correct.
I would appreciate if you try to make them Daytona Beach residents.
We certainly will.
Thank you.
What kind of jobs would you be looking for? Like forklift operators and package assemblers or what?
It'll run the gamut all the way from actual production and analysts to forklift operators to assembly line workers.
Okay. Right. Any other questions? I need a motion for approval.
Second.
Any other discussion? Let's call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right. Hampton Inn ad valorem tax exemption.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have in the audience today Mr. David Hood. The first one is Hampton Inn. Mr. David Hood represents both of these entities. It's Hampton Inn. They came before you a long time ago. We now have a valuation from the property appraiser's office, so we're ready to move forward. The average annual wage is $30,000. They're going to create about 50 jobs. This is page 3, number 3. The estimated amount of payroll per year over the period of exemption is $5,895,000. They're going to spend about $10,000 to rehab, redevelop this property into something that we're proud of. Their percentage of current full-time employees is this number 12 on page 4 is 97%. And I'm presenting this. Their valuation over the period of exemption is $19,853. Good.
Mr. Hood,
Good morning, Mr. McDermott.
would you gladly state your name and address, please?
I will state it, maybe not gladly. I'm David Hood. I live at 1925 South Atlantic Avenue, apartment number 1107, Daytona Beach Shores.
Okay.
I represent the Abdelhazen family, which is a group of African Americans who have come to town. They started their projects with the Inn on the Beach. If you had ever been in the Inn on the Beach, it was one of the Skank hotels of Skank hotels. And they have invested almost $5 million making it a first-class project. What they're doing currently, and with your help, are buying more facilities on the beach. The Hampton Inn was their next project. You'll see it right after this. We'll be talking about the Desert Inn, which they have also bought. So they're investing not just thousands of dollars, they're investing tens of millions of dollars in Daytona Beach. And I would encourage it is for all of our benefit to encourage this family to keep investing in Daytona Beach, because they're not building new stuff, they're actually taking that old stock and rehabbing it. So the Hampton Inn was owned by a Polish couple, foreclosed Wells Fargo. It was I was actually in this hotel. There's nobody in this room that would have allowed your dog to stay there, and it's been rehabbed, and so that's why we want the incentives, and frankly, it's important to our client. And I'll be
glad.
glad.
Opportunity to meet Mr.
Abdelhazen.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Easy for you to say.
I had a hard time with that
Met
one.
with Efrain
But-
Silva.
Okay. But he is, I met him at, I think, one of the properties that they first started with was the Econo Lodge down on the South End Shores.
Yeah, that was their second one. They
Yeah.
did the Inn on the Beach, then they bought the Econo Lodge right next to it and rehabbed both of those. Then they've gone to the Hampton Inn, which is here today. They bought the Desert Inn. We closed that about a month ago, and they intend to start rehabbing that project shortly as soon as we get this taken care of.
And very, very nice gentleman. He's got a good vision for the area, and I believe that he invited me to come in to look at the Hampton Inn. I haven't been there yet, but I pass by it almost every morning. So, you know, it's just it's great. I mean, just the outside makes the skyline of Daytona Beach a whole lot better. Okay, do we have any questions of Mr. Hood?
I'm all for it. I'll just put the
Motion, you're making the motion?
Motion, approved.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you. Have a nice year.
Wait, Mr. Hood. That was the Hampton Inn. We're now.
Oh, we got the Desert Inn.
Oh, we have to do that.
You're still on board. You're still on.
The Desert Inn and Hotel has interesting history. And I have no, I couldn't resist. The average wage is going to be $30,000, similar to the last project. They're going to create 76 jobs here. The cumulative payroll over the period of exemption is $14,960,000. They plan to invest about $20 million in this project. Page 4, number 12, the current percentage of employees here that they employ is about 97%, and recommending that we stimulate this effort.
Okay. Do you have anything to say about the project, Mr. Hood?
The interesting choice of stimulate this project in light of this project's history. No, there's no reason to duplicate what we already said. It's a no-brainer, I think.
Do I have a motion from the board? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate your help.
Okay, we'll take these up to the City Commission. Okay. Brownfield Site Rehabilitation Agreement.
Yes, sir. We mentioned this term a little earlier in the meeting. There are two coming forward today. Part of the requirement for those to be blessed is that they have to come before the Brownfield Advisory Committee, which you are. So that, Mr. Snopsnellen.
We have to, adjourn, reconvene, or do we do someone else?
Yeah. Let's keep it going. You are both.
There you go.
We'll just put on our Brownfield hat.
You are both, actually.
That's right.
Okay, I heard you.
Would you please state your name and address, please?
Sure. Michael Schnapstyler with Cobb Coal, 149 South Ridgewood Avenue, Daytona Beach.
That's the new address.
That's the new address. I think I'm probably the first one at City Hall to
If
announce that.
y'all haven't been there, it is absolutely a great. I was there yesterday, and it was John Ferguson has the best view of Daytona Beach out his window.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Of course, you expected he would.
All the views are great. Yeah, I encourage everyone to come stop by and see us. I'm here today on behalf of 400 Beach Street Acquisition LLC. They own what was probably known as the former Lloyd Buick Cadillac dealerships on Beach Street, and then the former Massey Dodge dealerships on Beach Street. They're on the north end, just north of the former Harley Davidson facility. And so I'm appearing before this board today to present a brief presentation on the Florida Brownfields program and let you know what the plans are for the property, because as Emery mentioned, you are the Brownfield Advisory Board for any brownfield site that is located in the city's central business corridor's economic enhancement district. And as I'll get into a little bit during the presentation, that requires the redeveloper of the site to regularly come before the board at certain points in the redevelopment process. So I did bring a PowerPoint to help guide me through. I understand that you all received copies of the draft Brownfield Site Rehabilitation Agreements, and then I also...
They're being passed around now. There's a lot of paper.
Yep. And I do have with me as well a couple figures to help direct you all to
Sorry.
where we are in the city.
Can we share all this? Is that what we do? Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So we can go ahead and put the PowerPoint up for everybody.
Well, this is one thing.
All right. Yep, it's one big agreement. I'll get into that in a minute. But presentation today, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about the Florida Brownfields Redevelopment Program. We'll talk about what a brownfield area is and then what a brownfield site is. Very briefly talk about what the benefits of the program are. talk a little bit about the advisory board requirement under Florida statutes, and then talk about these two properties, the former Lloyd and Massey properties. And I apologize to Rob, Phil, Emery, Tim. You've all heard, this dog and pony show before, but
Yes.
it's condensed down. So a brownfield site, it's fortunate that you used the term brownfield because it has a negative connotation, but it's a word that was created by the federal government in the CERCLA cleanup program that Florida was required to adopt. And what that word means is property that is having trouble being redeveloped because of actual or perceived environmental issues. So, some of the key terms there are actual or perceived. Either you know something is going on out there, or there's a perception based on previous use, knowledge, conditions that is keeping the property from being redeveloped. And what a brownfield area is a contiguous area of one or more of those brownfield properties that has been designated as a brownfield area by a local government. And so that's what the City of Daytona Beach has done previously. They've designated a number of properties along Beach Street, along ISB, along A1A, throughout the city as a brownfield area to encourage the redevelopment of the specific sites within those properties. After a brownfield area is designated, parties can enter into the document that you have in front of you. It's called a Brownfield Site Rehabilitation Agreement, or BSRA for short. It's a voluntary and negotiable contract. It sets forth the terms and responsibilities for cleaning up the site. That's called site rehabilitation, assessment, and remediation. And then there's a specific section of the Florida Administrative Code, 62780, that sets forth how you work through that process. So it's set up to make sure that the site is cleaned up in accordance with Florida law. A key requirement of the Brownfield program is that the person entering into the agreement with the state did not cause or contribute to the issues out at the property. So it's designed to encourage people to step up and take care of environmental issues that are affecting the environment, health, and the economy in our communities. Once the agreement is signed between the parties, certain economic development incentives become available. And that is one of the reasons why the city chose this board to be the advisory board for the brownfield area. A business that creates a new full-time equivalent job within that brownfield property, the property with the agreement or any property adjacent to that brownfield site, can get a refund of $2,500 per job. It's one of the only job creation programs in Florida that does not require a certain wage be associated with it. It just has to be a full-time equivalent job with benefits. You can stack this brownfield incentive with the Qualified Target Industry Program that Keith mentioned earlier for up to $10,500 per job. There is also a state loan guarantee program, 50% for certain site rehabilitation and development costs, and 75% if the facility you're redeveloping is an affordable housing facility or healthcare facility. So that is a guarantee from the state that you can take to a bank and show that half or 75% of your loan is backed by the state. And then finally, there's a very limited sales and use tax exemption on building materials for affordable housing and mixed-use projects. That typically only applies in the case of redevelopment of a former industrial or manufacturing site into a mixed-use project. And so but if we do have any of those sites in our community where someone comes in and does that, you can have an exemption on your sales tax.
That would not apply in this specific case? What?
No, at this point, no, because the buildings have been demolished at the property at issue here. And then there also are some regulatory incentives associated with the Brownfield Cleanup Agreement. I'll just talk through them briefly. I mentioned the framework for the cleanup. DEP actually takes the Brownfield site cleanup documents that they have to review and puts them in a separate pile from all the other work that they have, so and works on the brownfields first. So the cleanup process goes a lot quicker. These brownfield documents are thousands of pages long, and under state law, DEP has about 60 days to review each document, so you can really get caught up in the cleanup process. So having this expedited technical review is critical. There is also liability protection, so that if someone agrees to voluntarily clean up a property, they don't have to worry about being hauled into court and facing a lawsuit to clean it up. They've already agreed to voluntarily clean it up. And then most important in terms of the economics of brownfield redevelopment, you have what's called the Voluntary Cleanup Tax Credit Program. And so DEP provides a transferable tax credit for cleanup costs that someone incurs in redeveloping a site, whether it's tank removal, cleaning up soil, cleaning up groundwater. You can receive up to 50% of your annual costs in the form of a transferable corporate income tax credit, and then an additional 25% of those costs when you reach closure, when you finish your cleanup. So you can get up to about 75% of your costs back. Once again, those are it's for Florida corporate income tax, but they can be transferred, which means a nonprofit or a local government, if they chose to voluntarily clean up a site, could get their money back for cleaning up the property.
There is an active market for those credits.
Correct. They're currently selling between 85 and 90 cents on the dollar right now. So there are a lot of out-of-state businesses that have Florida corporate income tax liability who are actively looking for these credits. So, yeah. I always like to talk about the advantages of brownfield redevelopment as opposed to redeveloping a property that has never had anything out there. Sometimes they're called greenfields. There's usually, because there's a stigma, there's decreased acquisition costs for the property. Infrastructure is already in place typically, so either you're just upgrading water and sewer or stormwater instead of building new facilities, which cost a lot more. Depending on the redevelopment, you have opportunities for impact-free credits. You can recover your cleanup costs, as I mentioned. And then there also are some fantastic federal grant opportunities that Daytona Beach has been implementing over the last few years, and some of our other local governments in the county have recently been getting into as well. And then DEP actually puts up an annual report summarizing what's happened in the brownfield program every year. And so I always like to share the figures because the amount of investment attributable to the brownfield program is really incredible. EPA awarded $4.4 million in cleanup grant funds to local governments in Florida last year. DeLand actually was a recipient of a $400,000 grant. Edgewater, Oak Hill, and New Smyrna have a coalition of up to $600,000. Flagler County also has a coalition of up to $600,000. I think it's Flagler County, Bunnell, and Palm Coast. So, and Daytona Beach has recently successfully implemented a $400,000 EPA grant throughout the last couple of years. More than 312 brownfield areas exist in Florida. There are 167 executed brownfield site rehabilitation agreements. So the two that are before you today will add to that total. More than 40,000 confirmed and projected new jobs have been created under this program, and more than $1.8 billion in capital investment is attributable to the state brownfields program since it started in 1997. So we're here today with you all because you are the Brownfield Advisory Committee. Florida statutes requires either the local government or the person completing a brownfield cleanup to create an advisory committee. And I think it was back in 2011 or 2010 by city resolution that this board was picked to be the advisory committee. So as the advisory committee, the intent behind creating it was to increase public participation in the cleanup process, to allow an opportunity for the public and for the community to provide comments on the cleanup and redevelopment of the property, and then to facilitate knowledge about employment opportunities, community safety concerns, and environmental justice issues. Meaning, as the advisory board, you would be able to speak to people in the community about these opportunities at this property. And the concept of environmental justice is very important, especially in this community, and it is the idea that minority or disadvantaged populations should not have to bear the burden of environmental impacts. Typically a lot of the uses that have been associated with environmental issues have been located in areas where minority populations live. And so there is an important push at the EPA level and the state level to make sure that those communities do not bear the burden for those environmental issues. The state statutes do require that my client notify this board of the intent to enter into the agreement, so that's why we're here today. We have to provide you with a draft of the agreement and an executed copy, which we'll get to you through Emery. And then we must come to the advisory board just to provide updates on what's going on in the brownfield cleanup process. So we will be appearing before this board maybe once a year or twice a year, depending on how the cleanup goes, to update you on what's going on out there. So just want to give you a brief overview of the properties. You do have a couple of figures in front of you. This one that says Figure 2, which is outlined in red, is actually the former Massey Dodge dealership. It's a 2.63 acre site located at 300 North Beach Street. Its most recent use was a former auto sales and service facility. But what's really interesting about the brownfield process is that you have to investigate the entire history of the property to see what uses have been out there to determine what the potential are for environmental issues. And so in investigating this property, we actually learned that the hotel was located at this site in the 1920s. It was a used car dealership in the 30s. There was a filling station along Beach Street in the 40s and 50s. And then in the 50s, it was redeveloped for auto sales and service as the Dodge dealership. And over the last 2 years, there has been a little bit of environmental work done out at this site, including a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. That's a written document to uncover the history of the property. There was a supplemental site assessment, meaning the owners tried to determine the vertical and horizontal extent of the environmental impacts at the property. There was removal of impacted soil. They did find a previously unregistered underground storage tank, so that had to be removed. And then, as part of the service facility, there were hydraulic lifts, for the cars that came in, and those hydraulic lifts were basically closed in place with cement, and they have cylinders and tanks, little 50-gallon tanks underneath them. So we actually removed those hydraulic lifts because we don't want to have any buildings supported by those features there. So. The next property that's going to be entered into an agreement is just north of Massey. That's the former Lloyd Buick Cadillac dealership, and that's the other figure we have before you. It's a slightly larger property, 4.4 acres, but had a similar automobile dealership and service use. An even older history than the Massey property. We determined that there were residential uses out there between the 1890s and 1910s. There was a hotel and a church there between 1910 and 1920. A dry cleaning facility was there for over 30 years, a filling station, and then the auto dealerships and service facilities were developed out there in the 60s until they closed in the 2000s. And so work performed at this site was actually done under the city's EPA grant, that $400,000 grant that the city had. This was one of many properties in the city that used some of the grant funds. And the work that was done under that grant was a Phase 2, a site assessment and source removal. And another underground storage tank was found on this property that wasn't previously registered, and then similar removal of the hydraulic lifts from the service facility. So from here, as I mentioned, we're entering into the brownfield cleanup agreement. It does have a schedule attached to it to show everybody, what the timing is for getting through the cleanup process. Those are the maximum time limits. Depending on the site conditions, we'll try and move, quicker than that, but you can't always guarantee that. And then the environmental cleanup process is in the statutes and in the regulations, it's very detailed, but you can really break it down into 4 key components. You go out and you do your sampling to determine where soil and groundwater contamination is. Based on that assessment, you create what's called a remedial action plan. This is what we're going to do to address these impacts. You send that to DEP for approval. Once it's approved, you go out and implement that cleanup. And then after that cleanup is done, you do what's called post-remedial monitoring. You sample soil and you sample groundwater to see how the levels have changed since you've done that work out at the site. And that is, the basic plan for both of these properties. The redevelopment plan is a work in progress. In 2012, the city did rezone the properties from PUD to RDD3. You all may recall that these properties were going to be where the Beach Street condos were supposed to come in, and that the housing bubble burst, and so that's kind of changed the thought process. And the owner that owns the property now was not the property associated with the Beach Street condos. They've acquired the property through a state, sort of like a foreclosure program, but not exactly like that. It has been rezoned to RDD3, which does expand the uses. It does still allow multifamily residential, but that also does include commercial uses, business and professional services, retail, things of that nature in large mixed-scale developments. The city did also recently approve a site plan for some landscaping and demolition. As you can see by going out there, the demolition has occurred, but the client wanted to get a handle of the environmental issues before going out there and landscaping. You never know what you find out there, and you don't want to expose any people to what could be under the concrete and parking lots there. So more than happy to take any questions or comments.
I'm really a little confused.
Yeah.
And I'm always confused with myself. Some of this work has been done already?
Yep, so that list that I went through earlier, that work has all been done to date. And so
what's left? I mean, I'm a little confused where you are right now.
Okay. Where we are right now is in the kind of what we'll call the assessment process. So we're taking a look at what had previously occurred out at the site. Both properties have been in some form of environmental regulation since the 90s. So this is someone who has come in and stepped into what other people have created out at the site, and they're really just trying to get their hands on what the extent of the issues are. A lot of these things have been under concrete, under buildings, under parking for 20, 30, 40 years.
Well, specifically, you say there's a tank down there that was probably used at the gas station. Is that type of thing gone now?
So as far as we know, all the tanks that have been registered or identified have been removed. Okay. You try and remove as much impacted soil as you can during the tank removal, but until you go out there and put soil borings around the property, you don't know how wide and how deep of an area you have. And so that's why we'll start with this assessment process first, going out there and putting in soil borings, groundwater monitoring wells to look at what the extent is, give DEP a report that says these are where the areas of concern are, and then create a plan to clean it up.
Is there one owner for both of these sites?
Yes. There is, but the reason why we chose two brownfield cleanup agreements is because they are, by DEP standards, considered separate properties. And so what you never want to mix two properties together in one cleanup agreement, because you may be done with one property before the other, and so you want to be able to close that out so that you can tell someone, hey, look, this has no environmental issues, it's done. Here's the clean closure document. You really want that document. That's a really important document in trying to convince people to come to the site and getting a bank to loan some money. And so you don't want to have the fact that one property isn't complete yet holding up the other property.
And are there development plans?
There have been some concept plans, not anything that has been submitted to the city yet for formal approval, but there has been kind of at the conceptual level some plans being put together for what to do out there.
I thought there was still a for sale sign on there. Has that been taken off?
No, it is still for sale. I think, the property owner is looking for potential partners in the redevelopment and all that, but at this point, they're just going to go forward with the cleanup now before selecting the end use of the property.
Any other questions?
So do you need something from us, or is it just a report?
It is just a report. We're happy to take any comments back to DEP or to the client that you may have, but your role is just an advisory committee being updated, and with the hope that you help spread the word about the good work that's being done out at the site.
Who actually approves the agreement?
The Department of Environmental Protection. So it goes to Tallahassee first, where the program is headquartered. Actually, my PowerPoint had some contact information for the folks at Tallahassee. And then once the General Counsel approves it, it goes to Orlando, where the Central District of DEP is located, for execution by their director. So.
Does the city attorney get involved at all in this, in reviewing the agreement?
Nope. Unless the city enters into its own cleanup agreement for a property, it doesn't. The city's work is done when the brownfield area is designated. When they take that first step to say, these are the properties we're going to put into a brownfield area, and then it's up to someone who wants to come in and pick one of those properties and enter into one of these cleanup agreements.
Okay, well, you stated that there was a grant that the city provided some of the cleanup for. So is there an interlocal agreement that's between the state and the feds or whatever in the city regarding that money?
That is a separate brownfield program. So there is a state brownfield program, which is what I'm here on today, and then there's a federal brownfield program that provides grant money to local governments, and then local governments choose how to disperse that. The two programs are separate, distinct, and independent of each other. And so the city had those funds available and had targeted the property as one of the potential end users. So we used that to get a better understanding of what the issues were before entering into the agreement. Because by entering into an agreement, the client, 400 Beach Street, has agreed to chase down those issues, whether they go all the way to the river or, as far west as it may go. So you really need to do your homework and due diligence before you voluntarily agree to take responsibility for something you didn't create out there. So.
Okay.
I think that moving that development from Beach Street is laudable. Keep going.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, well, interesting.
I'm going to those brownfield site rehabilitation agreements. I'd like to collect those back.
What's this big draft back?
Okay. Any old business? New business?
I'd just like to remind everyone that Team Volusia's annual meeting is scheduled for Thursday, January 16th at 8:30 at the Daytona 500 Club, and we'd love for all of you to come.
Where is it?
Daytona 500 Club within the Speedway.
What time?
8:30 registration, 9 o'clock meeting. We have as our keynote speaker Secretary of Commerce Gray Swope to give us input as what he's seen as far as economic development and his vision for Volusia County. So there is a charge. It's breakfast is being served. Charge is $25 for non-investors. And it is open to the public.
That was one day again?
Thursday, January 16th, right the day before Eggs and Issues. So that wasn't planned. It just happened. 2 early mornings.
Breakfast that week.
Exactly. Thank you.
Any other new business?
Well, I don't think we want to have January 18th as our next meeting, since we're on January.
Well, it says January 17th, Eggs and Issues, then, isn't it?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's right on the bottom.
It's the big one up at the top in blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
They've got the 17th.
That's just a 17.
What was this option to recognize reward businesses?
Yes, Mr. Chair. At the last commission meeting, Commissioner Lentz ask that this board look at ways that we might recognize or reward businesses for expanding in Daytona Beach. And we did talk about this, I want to say, a couple of years ago.
We actually made one.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, that has resurfaced, and I just kind of throw it out there now so you can get your thinking hats on, and maybe we'll put it on the agenda as an item for discussion and ideas at the next meeting.
Okay, is this similar to the beautification awards that they give to businesses, or are we looking at companies that just come in and spend
You know,
money?
it could be
or-
that, it could be that, but they did not tie our hands to be that. So,
I think the chamber has a similar program, because they rewarded those every year, I think, to 2 or 3 new businesses.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's,
you're talking about the Lou
there's several different awards that are done through the chamber, the Enterprise Award, the Lou Fox, Small Business of the Year, things like that.
okay, so
Okay.
put your thinking hats on.
All right. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, if I could just pick up on an item that Nancy with the Chamber mentioned to you. It relates to Space Volusia, potentially commercial spaceport in Southeast Volusia. As part of the environmental impact study, it's required that the FAA convene a meeting in Volusia County and a meeting in Brevard County. So as Nancy indicated, we think that's going to occur in February. We understand that that meeting will be held for Volusia County in New Smyrna, or at New Smyrna Beach High School, with a 1-hour kind of Q&A session in advance of the actual 2-hour open mic session. So because it's an FAA-run meeting, we're trying to confirm whether each speaker is limited to 2 minutes or 3 minutes. But if you do the math, on a 120-minute meeting, there could be as many as 60 speakers, there could be as few as 40 speakers.
Sounds like 30 seconds.
Well, it's fair to say that not everyone is in favor of this issue. So if you are of the opinion that this would benefit Daytona Beach, the employees, potentially employees associated with this industry coming from your residents, it's certainly the position of the chamber that we're supportive of it, then I would encourage you to consider how to engage that process and work with Jim Cameron at the chamber. And if that were to go so far as for you to sign up to be one of the speakers for 2 to 3 minutes and express your opinion, you know, there are talking points that would be available to you, so you wouldn't have to just kind of be left to make up your own if you're looking for some assistance. Certainly you're welcome to come and express your opinion. It's not been officially designated. We think in the next week the FAA will confirm it on their register, but we believe that it will occur in the first half of February, and I think Jim can, once that date has been made official, I think he can get that word out to you through Emory.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're talking February 11th right now, but that's not confirmed, so.
Yeah, that will be before our next meeting, so maybe at Eggs and Issues we can announce it.
Yep, that'd be good. All right. Any other business? Not? We're adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.